Hi, hello. Welcome to the Art of Being podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Motley. I'm an adventure seeking, spiritual, nature loving being, figuring out my purpose on this big floating rock we live on. If you are a free spirit seeking to understand yourself on a deeper level and also on a journey of self growth, then keep listening. Hello, welcome back to the Art of Being podcast. Today we have a very special episode with my first ever guest. We have John coming all the way from Ireland to share his story. Literally, he wrote a book, Quondam, and we'll get into what the book is about and what his values are, why he wrote this book. He biked from Ireland to Africa. It goes so much deeper than that. You'll just have to wait for the juicy parts. I met John when I was in Ireland last year. I stayed at him and his wife, Sarah. They have a little Airbnb. So I stayed there, and it was such a no coincidence. It was such a serendipitous moment of our paths crossing. I was going back and forth between, okay, where do I want to stay in Ireland? I don't want to plan too much. I want to kind of be in the moment. And I found this little Airbnb in West Cork, kind of rural area out of the city. Beautiful. And I was like, I want to connect. I want to stay somewhere where I'm not just staying in someone's house. I'm getting to connect with the people who live here. And the little Airbnb kind of blurb about who it's run by, the host, was talking about how Sarah, his wife, is a craniosacral therapist and how John is an author. So I was like, done. I'm sold. I'm meant to go here. And it turned out better than I could have ever imagined. I felt so at home. And I've left with so much wisdom I would have never gained if I wouldn't have trusted myself, trusted the unknown, and gone after finding a random Airbnb. I mean, I took months just looking, and until like a few weeks before, I was like, well, we're just gonna book something. And I am so beyond grateful I did, and beyond grateful to have connected with John and Sarah. So if you guys are listening, I appreciate you so, so dearly, and all that you have, all the kindness you've shown me within the few days I stayed at your place. So without further ado, we will jump right into the episode with John. And forewarning, I recorded on Zoom. I'm still testing out what platform to use with guests, and I have the free Zoom. So we did like 3 separate Zoom calls because if you have the free Zoom and you don't pay for it, you only get 40 minutes. So if it's a little choppy in between, just that's what it is. The Zoom cut us off and we had to pick back up in another call. Well, all right, enjoy. Okay, all right. So today I have the honors of interviewing John Devoy, a world traveler, author, father, overall inspirational human being. And I met you, John, last September when I was in Ireland, kind of in a serendipitous moment of just our paths crossing and one thing leading to another. And John has written a book, Quondam, Travels in a Once World. And so we're going to dive into what Quondam means to you, what the book is about, and the adventures you have gone on. So, John, I'll let you introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess most of your listeners, well, they can be anywhere in the world, can't they?
Yeah.
But I guess maybe they might be Oregon based or US based or wherever. To wherever people are, I say greetings from West Cork. By that I mean west of Cork City on the south coast of Ireland. And yes, everything that Kylie says is correct. I'm 68 this year, young, feeling maybe 38, 48 max, but I feel good. Health is good, thank God. I'm married to a wonderful, wonderful lady named Sarah, who's just helped us out to make this connection possible.
Yes, bless her soul.
So she's done her bit already. And we have 3 adult children, and I'm speaking to you from our very small organic farm, which bear in mind, because that is significant that I'm speaking to you from a 2.5 hectare, I don't know, what is it, acres in America
I
still?
think so.
Are you gone hectares yet? Are you gone metric? Anyway, it's 6.5 acres, that
Yeah.
sort of area. And I say it's significant because the journey that Kylie is referring to and the subsequent book, which happened over 30 years after the physical journey, led to me having to orientate, reconfigure, rethink who I was
Wow.
and what I want to do in the life that is given to me. I was trained as a clinical chemist. Clinical chemistry, it's called biochemistry. And I was working in a university hospital in Cork City back in the early 80s, right through until I left it, resigned in the late 90s. But the journey that we will speak about, keep this in mind, over 2 years, changed who I was slowly, not in a eureka,
Mm.
on the road to Tarsus or on the road to Damascus experience, but it was a slow, unstoppable change. And I had to leave that former life and reboot myself, and I was married at the time, and become from a laboratory wearing a white coat to a farmer wearing dungarees. So that was the transition. And it would not or could never have happened without the journey that we're going to speak about.
Wow. Oh my God, goosebumps right now. So beautiful, so beautiful. And I think you're a big inspiration for so many other humans that start on one path and then, life happens, we go places, do things, and
Yeah.
are completely thrown into a whole new world, so to speak. So,
Yes.
um, I personally, I've read the whole book, so I kind of have a little bit of background information, but for those who haven't read Quondam, what is Quondam about? What is this journey that we're going to talk about?
That's a question, isn't it? I want to quote back to you,
Okay.
Kylie, something that you said in your email, because I think it's apt to answer the question that you've just asked. What is it? And I quote you. You said in the email, having read the book,
Hmm.
I went into Quondam for adventure, and you said other things, adventure and to experience uh, a long journey, and I ended up with a whole new set of eyes.
Yeah.
Now, that when I read that, I said that's interesting because you are not the only one. Most people who read the book, um, they're expecting a typical or normal or journey, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and that journey, just to back up a little bit, was because we have to put this in context. This was in 1985. Not that the year makes any difference, but just to give it a year, it was 1985, where I was 29 years of age. And on Fool's Day, the 1st of April, I left Cork City on the south coast of Ireland on a bicycle, and I cycled. The idea was to cycle to North Cape, which would be the equivalent of cycling to the top of Alaska, and cycling from North Cape in the top of Norway to Cape Point in South Africa, which is south of Cape Town, South Africa, and then back up a quarter way back up through Africa. That was the plan. That was 2 years. And please bear in mind, it was long before sat nav and Zoom and doing what we're doing now, and mobile phones. Computers weren't even,
Mm-hmm.
so it was a different world. But uh, Quondam is not a nostalgic book. I wouldn't have bothered writing it 30 years after the fact if I was just bringing you back in look what I did back then.
Yeah.
Not that. And I think Kylie, you can say your own piece on that. It is not that at all. It was not my intention. I wouldn't have bothered spending 5 years writing that book if I was just telling you, like showing you an old picture album. Oh, look at
Right.
who I was. No, it's not about that. But that's the context. That was the journey that happened. And Kylie, your job now is to keep reins on me because we can go down lots of rabbit holes
Oh,
here. Yeah.
yes, we can.
Okay?
For
So
sure.
you gotta listen to what I'm saying because one thing will very quickly lead to another. But that's the context of the physical, geographical young man, young person on the big adventure. I wanted living on an island, and in a sense, we're all on an island
Right.
on planet Earth. We
Mm-hmm.
are on an island. I'm living on an island, and I wanted to, like most young Irish people, you want to see what's beyond,
Go
and
explore.
I was motivated to do that.
Oh,
So I,
beautiful.
um, uh, yes, yes. So maybe did you ask what does quondam mean? Did
What the book is about, and I feel like you hit the nail on the head. And going back to what I said in the email of going in blind and just kind of going in for this adventure
yes,
ending,
yes,
remember staying at your guys' house at the Airbnb and looking at this book and being like, huh, I'm on travels right now. I wonder how this will relate and not having that background context. And
yeah,
so going in, I was like, oh, I resonate with this. This makes sense. And then the more you read, the more eye-opening it gets. And it's more,
yes, yes,
like you say, like the beingness of travel and how it changes a human, being able to see not only amazing sights that are like breathtaking, but also the not so glorious parts of the world where, the third world countries going through war. And you talk about in the book some of the not discrimination necessarily, but how women are treated in other
yes,
parts of the world and how they were treated back then. And so that definitely shook me up. And I feel like
yes,
gave me a wider respect for
yes,
not only travel, but how other beings live around the world. So I find,
yes.
like you said, Quondam's not just I went here and did this. It's I.
No, no, it's not it's not a travelogue. It's not a no. And actually, I'm looking at some things that I've printed off um, from reviews,
Mhm.
global reviews on the book, and maybe sometimes listening to somebody else's voice or somebody else's comment. And again, you're in Oregon somewhere, so I just reviewed. These are based right across countries, and I just review, or rather, read the reviews from the USA, Alaska, and these are on Amazon.com or Amazon.com UK. This one from Julie in Anchorage. She said, I thought it would be one thing, but it hit me broadside.
Mm.
Now, broadside is not a word that's used on this side of the Atlantic, so I can almost hear her accent. It hit me broadside. It's an amazing read, a book like no other, and as others have said, there is so much in it, it needs a second reading to get the subtle points. That's from Julie in Anchorage. Another American man. I'm reading this because it's probably an American audience who'll be
Yeah.
listening to it. A guy called Tom Bilce or Bilcz. Anyway, he rates himself as a top-rated book reviewer on Amazon. I've never met these people, but anyway.
Cool.
Devoy possesses a talent to turn printed words on a page into a living visual experience in my mind. His writing style drew me in and held me captive till the last sentence. I like to highlight my takeaway passages in a book. Most books give me 2 or 3. Quondam gave me 12 or more, and that speaks to the value of this book in my eyes. Another American, Frosty Wooldridge, and I think he is from somewhere in the mid-states. I'm thinking Boulder, Colorado, but I think because I saw him on Facebook one time. Most of these people are mature. I think he's in his 70s. Some writers take you on a ho-hum adventure. You read the story, but you're not part of it. In Quondam, you are right there with your eyes wide open. The journey etched memories into his thighs. He etches them into your mind. And what he saw with his, he shares with us. And while reading the book, his insights enter your heart. That's one heck of a combination for one writer. I'd give this 7 stars if they offered it for a rating. Highly recommended. And I'll finish with this one from a Jed Maddock from Vancouver.
Oh,
Again,
that's
not too far away.
yeah, right.
Sort of up the road.
Yes.
It's like Dublin for us, from Vancouver. He says, this writer writes from the heart and has a real mastery of language. The way he writes makes me feel I am seeing his story through my own eyes.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, maybe I think you might resonate with some of those comments, Kylie.
100%. The descriptions and just the way where it gives the reader such a way of visualizing where you're at, what's going on, and I love how you describe things as simple as food or the mundane moments, and it doesn't just jump from one thing to another. It's everything that's kind of led up to where you're at.
Can I suggest something?
Yes.
Because we're talking about the visual and we're talking about what people say. May I? And you're the boss here, right? I'm just
No worries.
may I, could I read the first paragraph so that people can get a sense of how they can be taken
Yes.
directly into a moment? Because Quondam is about moments.
Mhm. I think that
I
would be
repeat, the Bus book is about moments which are timeless. It doesn't matter if I was 29 and now I'm going on 68. That is totally immaterial. It doesn't matter if the journey was 85 or 95 or 2005 or 2015 or 2025. A moment is a moment. And if you enter the moment, if you are present, that is timeless. It doesn't matter. The experience you have with picking up a stone, tying your shoelaces, falling off your bike, seeing a young boy offering you a banana, it doesn't matter if it's 85 or yesterday.
Mm.
So Quondam is about trying to bring the reader into the moments of a journey that we all make. Yeah. So I'm going to read the very opening paragraph of Quondam. And if you are astute enough, you will see that even the title of the opening chapter throws you a little bit. There's so many paradoxes, and is it black or is it white? No, it's sort of somewhere in the middle. Is it this or is it that? No, actually, it's so. So the opening title, the title of the chapter is "The Nile is Egypt. Egypt is the Nile." On the top floor of the Oxford Hotel, the window I wanted to open just wouldn't. Layers of old paint had sealed it. But then, with one final sharp pull, the chill air suddenly rushed in, and I stuck my head out into the last day of the year. Dusk was sweeping fast over Cairo. Down below, on Talis Harb Street, the busyness of the day was almost done, and bar some traffic and the occasional honk of a taxi, the street was emptying itself. The city's foot soldiers, Egypt's urban fellahin, were drifting home. Across the street, in another window, one floor lower, a small plastic Christmas tree blinked its white lights in an otherwise darkened building. Off, on, off, on, off, on. A lone token to Christian tradition, but enough to make me think of home, until the umpteen minarets called out to prayer and a Quranic rhythm wafted over us all.
Beautiful.
So that's the opening paragraph, paragraph to Quondam. And Quondam is different because Quondam means former. If you Googled it or looked up a dictionary, I haven't done it in a while, but I guess it will still tell you that it's once, as in once upon a time, as something that happened. Well, you could truthfully say in the English language that, or I could say I am a Quondam farmer, or you could be a Quondam teacher. If you were a teacher once upon a time, you could legitimately say that. It's an old word, rarely used, but I decided to use it, having thought for months and months and months and months about what title to give it, because it does describe, there's no getting away from it, it does describe a world that for your generation, Kylie, it's gone. You find it difficult to imagine, pre-technology. And Quondam was written on the threshold, on the cusp of writing postcards and letters and sending WhatsApp messages.
Yeah.
Right? It was on the cusp. So reading Quondam, you are also, apart from experiencing moment after moment of a journey, which I said a moment ago, was timeless. You are also walking a line, reading a line between those two worlds. Yeah.
I love that. And I love how even just you reading the first paragraph, I closed my eyes and I felt like I was there with you, or like when
Opening the window.
yeah, I could like feel the breeze and I'm sucked into that moment. And the title is so fitting, and how that moment no longer exists here and now, but in the
But
moment.
you get it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you get it. Okay, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Do you want to, you're the one with the questions here.
You've already answered, because my second question is what quondam, the word, means and what it means to you. And so you kind of just answered that. So jumping from quondam, what that word means and what the book is about, what is the message you wish to get out into the world? with this book?
Oh, you know, I've read a lot of travel books.
Hmm.
That personally, I know everybody. Some people don't read travel books at all, but and I don't mean the the how to when you're going to Venice or
Right.
the best restaurants. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about fairly serious travel books.
Right.
Yeah, that try to take you on a journey. Um, when I was young and right through my 20s, 30s, I read a lot of them, and there was something missing. There was something for me that just none of them. I can't remember a single one. Okay, maybe bar one. Um, that really took me somewhere. That really made me stop and think. So part of the reason for writing it was I got fed up of these so many superficial travel books that weren't taking me anywhere. Because for me, travel is a two-way street. It's not you going out to see the Taj Mahal. It's not me, deciding to cycle across America and go from, New York to Los Angeles, or it's an inner journey.
Mm.
So unless the book is giving you the other side of the street, traffic goes down the street and it goes the other way up the other on the other lane. So it's a two-way street. And most travel books are what my old friend, my dear friend Dervla Murphy, who's passed in another, she's in travel heaven now at age 92. She died a few years ago. She used to say that when she was encouraging me to write Quondam, she said, try and show. Now, if you go to any writers group or a creative writing workshop in a university or a college, that's almost the first thing they'll tell you. Try not tell your story, try and show your story. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Is it easy to do? It's brutal. It is sweat and blood to show your story. Easy to tell, but to show it, in other words, to try and write yourself out of the script is
Mm.
hard. Do you understand? So in Quondam, I tried to write myself out of my own story.
Wow, I didn't even comprehend how difficult that
It's
would be to do as an author.
it's extremely difficult to do. It's very easy for me just to tell a story,
Mhm.
but if I want you to feel it, that's different.
Right.
And I could never have written Quondam when I was 30. I could never have written it when I was 35 or 40. I'd say even 45. I was well into my, when did I start writing this? 2013, I started writing Quondam.
Wow.
So I was late 50s. And
See,
the reason I say that is that to write, it sounds like I'm sort of blowing trumpets here now, but bear with me and forgive
blow
me.
the trumpets. It's okay.
But no, but it's sort of I'm laboring to try and explain. I would not have lived enough at 30 years of age or even having done the journey. I didn't understand what I'd done.
Wow.
You understand?
Yeah.
Lots of people do wonderful journeys and I applaud them. But does that make them a writer? No. Just because you've climbed Mount Everest doesn't make you a writer. Writing is a hard, hard, hard skill, right?
Yes.
So, in other words, Quondam is different because I had to wait a long time to understand at a deeper level, at a psychological level,
Uh,
at an emotional level, what I did. And then I had to translate it in a way that the reader would get the hit in their heart and in their brain. Does that make sense?
So much sense taking that time to process, and I can only imagine 2 years of time, so much goes on in that
Oh, yeah.
time period that you
Yeah.
can't digest that in just one day. You can't
No.
digest everything you've seen and gone through, and in the
No.
book, you explain some very not so lovely things that you got to see with your own eyes, and so that makes so much sense that it's taken time and shows how you've really poured your heart, your soul into gifting the world with this journey through time, through experiences.
Yeah. So I had to wait. I had to wait. Not by the way, Kylie. It wasn't. This wasn't calculated. I didn't say, "Well, now I'm going to wait for 25 years." No, I
Right.
mean, life goes on. I got married. I had 3 kids. They're young. They're your age now. They're out in the world. I was moving out of, as I said earlier, from a hospital laboratory to starting an organic farm. I mean, I had enough to do.
Yeah.
Writing a book was not on my mind. Trust me, at all. I thought about it,
Mhm.
and in the early days, I balled up more pieces of paper and threw them into the waste paper basket, probably a forest worth of paper. I tried, but I wasn't ready. I
Mm.
wasn't ready inside to express the depth that
Yeah.
I wanted to at 30, 35, 36, up to 40, 45. I wasn't ready. And something about when you get a little bit older, all you're doing is you're getting a little bit more life under your belt.
Oh, I like that.
Nothing really changes. You're
Yeah.
just you. You are still you, but you just got a little bit more. Yeah, you just got more experience, and
Yeah.
now you understand who you were when you were 30. You can look back with compassion at that person
Wow.
and at the experiences. So when I was 57, and this is important to understand why Quondam is different. I had to, in that time, how would I put this? You know, when a lot of people write these days about their travel, it's too fast, it's too soon. They've done a wonderful trip, and then they're writing about it, but their ego is
Mm.
too immersed in it.
I went here.
So
I
it
did.
becomes very, very shallow. It's very super. It could be wonderful, but it's very superficial. So time has to pass so you can unplug your own ego from your own trip so that you can read about it or say, not read, write about it almost at an arm's distance because you remember that person
Yeah.
intimately,
I
but you're not him or
yeah,
her
the past version.
anymore. He is gone. In effect, he's dead. So that you can rewrite and with your older head, you can write without sort of so much ego. Get nothing. Ego's always there, by the way. But you know what I'm saying. You can sort of you've more space between the lines to allow the reader experience something. That's the key to Quondam.
I
The reader, every single review, readers say, "Oh my God, I was there. Oh my God, I felt that. Oh my God." I get lots of emails saying people cried. They cried.
okay. We left off with talking about removing ego from travels and how Quondam kind of constructs a message that, in a way, takes ego out of the past self that experienced travels. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm
Yes, as best you
okay.
can.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And I have recently, the past 2 years, tapped into longer term travel. Definitely not 2 years yet, but reading from your point of view, you hit the nail on the head with
Okay.
how travel can tap you into your inner beingness. And you talk about in the book sorry, this isn't on the questions. It's kind of just a side note.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I love how you talk about traveling to new places will teach you more about your home country than sometimes
Oh,
even
yeah.
being in your home country.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's one of the main reasons why we should travel. But we get travel upside down. We think we're going. Yes, of course. If I go to India, of course I want to see India.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I want to see, taste the food, the color, the people. I mean, it's just, or wherever I want to go, Chile or, um, but it's more subtle that when you go away, it, you the only place you really know, the only place I really know is Ireland
Mm,
as an Irish person,
right.
because you are part of the fabric of the space. Now, I know these days people are moving about, they're traveling about, and I know in different places it's different. But if you, certainly from as an Irish person living in Ireland, uh, you are so, it's just like the hair growing out of your head.
Yeah.
You're so aware of ancient times. Like like we went to the Burn over Christmas and we were standing beside a dolmen. That's 5,000 years old, right?
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
would have caved and potholed in the Burn, which is a limestone area. So
Mm.
and then you go down to the local pub and you're having a pint with some old guys there who were telling you about recent history about 60 years ago. It's just layer upon layer upon layer. And when you go away, like the number of Irish people who go to Canada, young Irish people, and go to Australia or sometimes America, but it's a bit more difficult to go to America, but a lot of them are going to Australia now.
Interesting.
Oh, a lot, a lot. 20 to 26, 27, 28, that sort of cohort of Irish young people, I'd say a good 50% of them are off out in the world. My son lives in Lisbon,
I love
right?
that.
But
Yeah.
when they go, they're seeing and experiencing, and then they're reflecting back on Ireland. They're seeing it more clearly, warts and all.
100%.
So that's why we need to travel. We
Yes.
really do need to travel.
Yes. That's one thing I noticed when I was in Ireland is how connected the Irish are to the history of Ireland, all of that. And being American, I was just telling my friend, I'm like, I feel so ignorant sometimes traveling and just not having that foundation that some other countries get of education of the history of where they're from, their ancestors, all that. And so I find when I
Yeah,
travel, I always am learning more about my home country.
sure.
Beautiful. Which
Yes.
leads me into the next question. Is
Yes.
you talk about in the book the meaning of travel. So I'm curious, have you found the definition of travel or cultivated your own definition of what travel means to you?
Ah, um, that's a biggie. Uh, for the first thing that No, you see, it's difficult, right? Because I'm an older guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm an older guy, but let me come at answering your question obliquely.
Okay.
2 years ago now, in fact, two summers ago, so last summer before last, the summer before last summer, my son Oshin, post COVID, post his university, decided to go on a journey, a travel journey. Now, he's not a cyclist at all. He's a rugby football player, right? But he and his mate decided to go and cycle up through Italy. And I said to them, guys, look, Italy is be like you want to go on an adventure from Oregon and you're deciding to go and cycle down in California. I mean, okay, Oregon, California, maybe a little bit of difference,
Yeah.
but it's not going to give you a bang for your buck, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
even if you go to Colorado, or even you go anywhere in the States, you
Uh-huh.
know what to expect. Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the same in Europe, right? Language is different, but Europeans, young Europeans, whether they go to Portugal or France or Germany, they know they're in Europe. It's the same. The coffee tastes the same ding dong. So when they said they were going down to Italy, I said, "Come on, guys, you're 20. What were they? 23 at the time." I said, "Go and find some place that's really different." So
Ooh.
2 weeks later, I get a WhatsApp from my son who's studying in France. He said, "Thanks, Dad, for the tip. We're going to Kazakhstan."
Yes.
Right? I
Oh,
said, "Good on you.
yeah.
Good on you. Go someplace that you really don't know anything about." So they went to Kazakhstan. But a week or two later, they sent me another message. He sent me another message saying, "Dad, would you come?" Now, I said no. I was 65.
Mhm.
I felt I didn't need to go
Yeah.
to Kazakhstan at by the way, on a bicycle. He meant like for a couple of
Like,
months hiking. Yeah. This
yeah.
wasn't come out for a weekend. This was serious. I didn't have a bike. I didn't have gear. But anyway, I'm trying to, uh, I ended up going. I ended up going because I met a good friend of mine and I was joking with him
Uh-huh.
because his son was in my son's class at school. And I said, "Peter, what would you do if your fellow asked you to go to Kazakhstan on a bicycle?" And I didn't know that my friend was diagnosed with prostate cancer a few weeks before that. And he said, "John, cop yourself on. Don't even think about it. It could be you next."
Mm.
So I went. Following day, Sarah will confirm this. We were in Cork and we bought everything. And I went to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and all the way back for 4.5 months. Cycled back basically from the Chinese border back to Cork. That's only 2 years ago,
Wow.
right? Now, I'm not blowing that one up. The
Yeah.
point I'm making is that, and to answer your question, it's a sort of a long-winded way of answering your question, because your question was what does travel mean, or what does it mean for me?
Yeah.
Am I correct? Yeah. It was very, very difficult for me to make that decision to go with my son. I really gave every single excuse. I had
Mm-hmm.
I had trees to plant. My wife couldn't handle the Airbnb if I wasn't around. I had to, feed the cat, feed the budgie, anything. What had happened, I had lost confidence in myself to be able to do a big trip like that. And I said it to some people, and they said, "What? You spent 2 years cycling through Africa? What? You've lost?" Yeah, I said, but that was a different guy.
Oh.
That was 30 years ago. I'm not the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very difficult to go. And I was pushed, and my brother said, "Pop yourself on.
Right.
When is the next time your son is going to invite you anywhere, let alone Kazakhstan?" This is my younger brother telling his older brother to cop himself on. He was dead right. So I went. To answer your question, during that trip, obviously, like an old dog for the long road, if you learn about how to cycle a bicycle, you know how to cycle a bicycle. You mightn't
Right.
have cycled it for 10 years, but if you learn how to swim, you can swim.
Mm-hmm.
I was, can I be expletive here? I was shitting in my pants for a few days, right?
Right.
Because, because I didn't meet my son. Lots of things went wrong. I was on my own for the whole trip. I won't get into the details, but he went, but he was up with his friend and things happened. I was actually on my own and I had no sat nav. I'm not tech savvy, as you know now. And I was on my own old style with a map. So
Wow.
it was like, but the experience, I would describe it as formless.
Mm.
And when you're traveling, if you can ever arrive or get to the point where it's like floating, it's like as if you're jumping out of a plane with a parachute, maybe with somebody who's an experience, and you're flying, you're parachuting, and there's that floating experience. You know, you need to trust. You need to feel safe,
Mm.
and of course, being a guy is different, right?
Right.
As a woman, but let's park that for a while. But I felt after the first few days of feeling vulnerable, I entered into a like a formless just travel. I knew, I trusted I would be safe. Everybody was going to help me. And that was beautiful. So for me, pure travel, is like a formless experience. You are opening yourself up to the unknown,
Ooh. Ooh, I love.
because travel should be
Yeah.
unknown. The tragedy today, Kylie, is that everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to feel secure. Everybody wants to know exactly where they're staying, what Airbnb, what bed and breakfast, what campsite, what am I going to have for my.
I feel
Sure, I get that, right? When I traveled, when Quondam was written, there was none of that. You left every day and you had no idea what was going to happen or where you were going to end up. So a trust built up. You trust. The point of pure travel is that you deeply trust in the process of being alive among your humankind. Because nobody, bar if you walk into a war zone, and even then, nobody is going to pull a gun and shoot. I know there are issues with cities, and Dublin is as bad as other places, of course. But I'm talking about being out on the road as a traveler. Nobody's going to come up and try and do you in. People want to help. The bottom line, if you exclude the 1%, the 99 are there to support you, aren't they? That's
yeah.
my experience.
Yeah.
Everybody sees a traveler as somebody on a mission. Everybody sees a traveler as somebody on a journey. It hasn't changed much since Marco Polo. It hasn't changed much since Christopher Columbus. It hasn't changed much since St. Brendan. It hasn't changed much since all of the great travelers way back and more recent. People get it unconsciously when you're, especially in a remoter places, unless you're coming in a four-wheel drive and you're flashing the cash, and no, I'm talking about somebody who's working hard to make their travel happen. People get that.
Mm.
They want to help. So that that lends itself to a trust, and it allows you to feel free a little bit inside, so that you can experience the purity of where you are and who you're with.
Wow. No words. I could feel your passion through every single thing you just spoke of. And what I was hearing is travel is formless. It's something that you feel, not something. And it means something different to each person because we all experience life through our own lens.
We all experience life through our own lens, exactly. And I would just add to that, the point of traveling in a vulnerable, as vulnerable, and I use the word vulnerable careful, because some people feel that you're going to. Yeah, the word has different connotations. It has a sort of a being exposed and making yourself really unsafe. I mean vulnerable in almost in a psychological sense, that you're ready, you're open, you are willing to put yourself not walking down a dark alley in the middle of a city. I don't mean that vulnerable. I
Right.
don't mean stupid vulnerable.
Yes.
I mean being vulnerable in the true sense of the word, that you're going to allow yourself to trust the process of traveling, and out of that you get an enormous what's the word? Not feedback.
Fulfillment in a way.
Yeah. You benefits.
Yes.
You get the recompense. Um,
Wow.
right.
Yeah, I resonate with that deeply. When I was traveling last year, my saying, I traveled through Iceland in a van, and I am such a
Oh,
planner. And in this trip, I was like, you know what? We need to trust that wherever I end up is where I'm meant to go. So I didn't plan, which was out of my comfort zone. And I remember
right.
one of the days driving through the highlands in this van that had like bald tires. I didn't know if it could take it, but I told myself, I was like, you know what? You're never going to know what's on the other side of that mountain if you don't at least try. You can always turn the van around,
Yeah.
but you have to at least continue on to see what's out there. And yeah, yeah, I feel like that resonates, or I felt deeply what you were saying with just trusting in the unknown and trusting no matter where you end up, you're going to learn something. So,
I'm going to read you a line, just two lines from
yes.
page 20. Right.
Okay.
Sort of. I think it's apt. Um, I'm in Egypt.
Okay.
I'm somewhere down the Nile, heading to Aswan.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm followed by a bunch of young guys
Mm,
on bicycles,
I
and they
remember.
trip me up, and I fall. Right.
Yes.
Um, I often thought of those boys racing home. So many times youngsters would want to join in the adventure, if only for a few hundred meters. All they wished for was to pedal a while with a stranger, or to be part of something big, something many of them could never even imagine. But for my part, it took time to grasp what was really going on. It was the beginning of the realization that this was only partly my trip. I had presumed always that this was my plan, my execution. How could it be otherwise? Something you spend years pondering and stitching together. Now, in the slanting beams of sunup, as I rode towards Asyut, a new sense came. I no longer owned it. I, the traveller, was in essence just a bit player in a mega drama, and I felt the first tinge of a letting go, which would deepen over the months ahead. Letting go of my ownership of what I thought was solely mine. It may have been blatantly obvious to everyone else, but it came to me as a revelation. The yin and yang of a journey, mine and not mine, together on the road.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
So the little boys, when they were cycling behind me and cut the back wheel and I fell and so on. But I realized then that my journey was their journey.
We're all a part of
And
it.
we're all that when you go on your journey, you must never forget that if you're honest in that journey, if you're not trying to hide away in 4-star hotels, if you're not trying to be, go to, have everything planned and everything, the Uber picks you up in your Airbnb and takes you to the restaurant, and you're following what the latest TripAdvisor guy did. That's not travel. That's as stale as old bread.
Mm.
That is not travel. Travel is arriving in a place and walking out, not knowing where the hell which do I go left or right to eat? You're at least you're beginning. And then when you interact, now, okay, that was on a dirt road in Egypt. I don't expect everybody to be interacting with kids on bicycles, but it can happen anywhere. But for me, that moment was a realization that hey, guy, wake up. Your journey is not yours anymore. It's everybody's.
Wow, it's kind of like that moment of ego finally taking the back seat, because ego's identification with form.
Yeah.
And so it's the me, mine kind of
Me,
mindset. Yeah. And
it's
stepping
the,
out.
yeah,
This is
it,
all
it's
of ours. And that,
it's the it's the yin and yang, yeah.
yeah.
Um, and just if I may, Kylie, there's just something to follow up on that, because I thought we might be
Yep.
talking about this. So
Go
this is
ahead.
on page 64, and I hope it's sort of relevant. Again, there's the reflection on travel, um, and this time I'm in Sudan in the Sahara, and
Hmm.
I'm looking at Pegasus and Andromeda, and I should say that cosmology and astronomy have long been a hobby of mine. Um, so I'm reflecting
Okay.
outside my tent, sitting in the tent in the desert at night. We travel, to lie or sit in odd places and look beyond home, to look through the given of our times into the ordinary extraordinary that awaits us when we are ready. It was one of those nights I imagined I might never forget. Nights that we all know, nights that take hold of something we cannot name, something old beyond our telling, nights when all philosophies pale to dust. I stopped there. I'm in the middle of the desert and I'm looking at the stars and meteorites and satellites, and I'm in this place and I'm thinking, we travel to travel. Now, they're the same word, but I mean them in different ways here. And I let the listener or the reader figure out the two different meanings. We travel to travel.
Mm. What
So
is
you
it?
got to figure out what that second travel means. So when you go on a journey, when you go on traveling, yes, you're getting a bus, you're getting a train, you're getting a flight, you're getting a horse, you're getting a donkey, you're getting a bicycle, you're getting a canoe, you're getting blah blah blah, right? And you go from A to B, blah blah blah, right? That's the surface travel, and then there's another travel. Yeah. So if you're only traveling on the surface, that's all you'll get. You'll get surface travel,
Ooh,
right? You take
that's good.
you take the photographs, you take your phone out, and you'll take your camera, and you'll do all of that, and you'll come back with a lot of stuff, and you shove it on your computer, and you show your friends or you show yourself. But really, have you traveled? What I mean by the second travel is obvious. It's the inner journey trying to come to the surface. So unless in your journey, your outer journey, unless you're trying to allow, at least be aware of, or at least try your best to allow that your inner self to come to the surface and meet the outer journey, you ain't on the road, baby.
Mm. Mic drop. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of us, especially this day and age with travel becoming more, not necessarily popular, but the purpose of travel. the purpose of, as you say, travel to travel. Really get to know oneself on a deeper level, but not even yourself. It's more of that higher self, the one who's connected to the cosmos, connected to everyone, everything.
And humanity. You travel to break down not just your own ego and your own perceptions and your own. It's so important these days because we are living in such a both a complex and a crazy, twisted world. And sorry to say, he may be your friend, but your guy up the road there, Elon, right?
Mhm.
And X and Twitter and whatever they're called, and Facebook and Jeff Bezos and the whole look, Zuckerberg, what he's doing at the moment, we could get into that, right? In the state, like it's. I put it this way. I put it this way. The effect of it. I was asked about 3 years ago to go into my local town. Now, Kylie, I think you were in Clonakilty, which is our local town, about 6,000 people, small town. We're living a few kilometers outside that. I have a good friend who lives there, and his son of 26 wanted to cycle from our local town here in West Cork to New Delhi in India. Right?
Right.
That's a bit of a cycle.
Yeah.
Now I know his dad, and his dad, knowing what I had done, asked would I come in and join them for a coffee in a nice cafe in town, which I did. We met a few minutes beforehand, chatting, and then the son came in. Now he's a smart guy,
Mhm.
and he wanted to do the same journey that Dervla Murphy did in 1963, leaving Ireland, Lismore, to cycle from Lismore to New Delhi in 1963. It was a similar journey. And I said to him, wow, that is a big trip.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do it? Because, the father had told me a few things. And he said, yeah, he was a smart guy. Like he said, I want to challenge myself. I want to meet myself from the road. I want to see what I'm made of. I want to, yes, experience people, culture, place, food, and all the rest of it. But it was a bit more than that.
Mm.
Like we all do, he came into the cafe and he put his iPhone on the table. And I joked because the father was kicking me under the table. And I said, do you think, given what you've just told me, that you might go without the phone or without the laptop or whatever? Not a laptop, but these small little
iPad.
iPad. That'll tell you how tech savvy I am. He was going to go with his iPad and various other gizmos. And I sort of, trying to rise him a bit. I said, well, do you think you might go without them? And of course, he looked at me as, yeah, two heads. I said, I've nothing against tech. This is the
Right.
problem. Right? The problem is this. There's a young man, and he could be a young man from Salem in our, he could be a young man from anywhere,
Right.
or a young girl. He wanted to do the trip with thought. And I said to him, great, we support you. But
Yeah.
when the shit hits the fan, when you get depressed, when you get lonely, which you will do on a big trip like that, when you're on your own, what are you going to do? You're going to Skype your girlfriend? You're going to Zoom your mother? Which is exactly what he did.
Mm.
And that's the problem with travel today. It's almost impossible. We are so. The opening lines of Quondam refer to an umbilical cord.
Ooh.
The umbilical cord is technology for us today. You go anywhere in the world, Everybody is on their phone. I am not against technology. I am absolutely not. I said to this young man in Clonakilty, I said, no problem. I'm not, but, if you're telling me you want to meet yourself on the road, and when you get really into difficult, when you want to find that place in yourself, in your heart. Today, everybody, when anything happens, you're onto your boyfriend. Oh, look, this happened, and you're outpouring. Whereas before that, you had to find a place in yourself. You've had to find answers in yourself. You didn't offload it or upload it into the cloud. There's sadly, I think today that there's a lot of uploading and offloading, and it sort of creates a subtle barrier from meeting yourself.
100%. Because we don't sit with it. We immediately go.
No, we don't sit with it.
Yeah.
Now, the guys and gals who traveled before that, they'll know that. They've been there. But it's not anybody's fault. We're living with technology. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying, and Quondam tries to point this out, if you want to go on a journey, ask yourself first, what is the journey about? Is it about you discovering more about yourself, or do you just want to see the Niagara Falls?
The purpose.
If you just want to go on a photo shoot, see the Grand Canyon and cycle across the States, or come to Europe and do absolute no problem. But if your journey is about self-discovery, you got to think in a different way, or be thinking in a different way.
You and Sarah both, in like the nicest way, lit a fire under my ass with that quote of, what is your why? Why are you here? Why are you in Ireland? Why are you traveling? And it does get you thinking of, okay, what do I want to discover about myself, and how can I go about traveling in this modern day and age with technology and such, and still be able to sit with myself? We can travel however far, but we're still taking ourselves with. Where all the problems that are going on at home, still coming with. You still got to feel it. You're just in a new place, which I love that about travel. I love that you can be in a completely new environment where you don't know anyone, so you kind of are forced to sit with it, which not everyone looks at it like that.
Not everyone looks at it like that, exactly. So it depends. It's personal. It's very personal. It's like food, I don't tell you what to eat, I don't tell you if I like avocados, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
Food is personal, and it's emotional, and we travel for different reasons,
100%. I feel like we've answered a lot of the questions.
Right. You should have left that previous conversation in.
I know. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, I'll pick up kind of where we left off from what I remember. What advice would you give to those wanting to travel but held back by fear or limiting beliefs?
Oh,
Yeah. It's a deep one.
stop. That's limiting beliefs and fear. If they're there with you, you just look in the mirror, and ask yourself where they're coming from. Literally, physically, stand in front of a mirror.
Yes.
Yeah, look at yourself
It makes a world of a difference when you
and say where. If you want to go and travel in the way that we've been describing, and you're being stopped because of fear, I'd say don't. In one sense, I'd say don't until you look in the mirror and try and resolve some of the things. And on the flip side, I'd say to hell with it. Get excuse the language, a fucking ticket to anywhere.
Yes.
And go. Yeah. So you can play it both ways, right? Yeah. I remember I was influenced in my 20s. That's 45 years ago. I was influenced by a guy who was 10 to 50, he was 12 years older than me, living in Cork. He was a genius. He was a chemist, a degree in chemistry. But he gave up his work to look after his Alzheimer's mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember because a few of us were friends of him because he was an older guy, and he would take us on cycle trips around County Cork. And I would go, or a few of us would go to his house, his mother's house, and she would open the door, and because I had a beard and he had a beard, she'd say, "Oh, Brian." Brian was his name.
Oh,
"Oh, Brian, you're back. You're back." Now, Brian was probably in the kitchen,
yeah.
but that's Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But she mistook me for him.
For him. Oh.
And so I remember that very, very intimately, very, very poignantly. But the reason I'm telling you about this guy and about travel and about fear is just what he never traveled hardly outside Ireland. But what he did do, I've never forgotten. He had to look after his mother with debilitating
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's. But in his days off, he would go down to the city centre, go to the main bus station, and all the bus drivers knew him. And he'd get on any bus going anywhere, and he would be asked to drop off. They would drop him off. They all knew him. They all knew
Yeah.
Brian. They would drop him off about 20 miles outside Cork. He didn't care which direction the bus was going. That wasn't the point.
Yeah.
But he had a compass, and he would walk back to the city in a direct straight line over the fields, through farmyards, across streams, through woodlands, through maybe out villages, satellite villages. He'd follow his compass as best he could from the bus trip. So it didn't matter where he was dropped.
Right.
Now, the reason I'm saying that is that he had a huge, I was 15 years, so maybe I was 20, 24. He was late 30s, sort of. He
Wow.
was hugely, I said, wow, like that is just cool, Brian, man. He was, but it just shows you can have adventure in your locality. You just got to think differently.
Mm.
He just took a bus outside Cork and just walked across he met farmers, he met people, he met bulls in the field, he met sheep, he crossed streams, he went through because he just wanted to walk back in a dead straight line back to the city. And I've never forgotten that because he couldn't go too far looking after an Alzheimer's
Yeah.
mother.
Yeah.
And because I remember his sister would take over, but she had kids and she could only take over for a very short time. So he was a single man and he had, anyway. Um, so I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that one in there because, you can have adventure anywhere, but you got to think outside the box.
Go after it too.
You got to chase it. It doesn't
Yeah.
come to you on a plate.
Oh,
You've got to you got to work for your adventure. You got to work for your life. And I don't mean work for money. I mean you got to work for your life.
I love that. I met a lady in Ireland who's an artist, and she gave me an example of a three-legged stool. And she was like, all right, each leg is you have work, play, and say health. If one leg is shorter than the other, so you're pouring into your friend, for
Yeah,
example, caring for his mom so much where the
yeah,
dream play falls off, the stool is out of balance, it's gonna fall. But if
yes,
you're able to pour into every aspect of that life equally, then you have that balance. And so
yes,
that's
yes.
amazing that he was able to find adventure. And it goes to show for people that say work a 9 to 5 job but are craving that lifestyle of travel. On your days off, go for it. Go after it and follow your heart and your intuition in the sense of what's going to bring me that excitement.
Yeah, there's got to be unknown.
Yes.
There's got to be unknown. So I went to Kazakhstan with my son, and I anyway, his flight. I mentioned this earlier, but he went 10 days before me instead of 1 week after me. So I was to be there before they arrived. But they, when you're 23, you don't care about your old man.
Mm.
You know, Dad, you'll be fine. No problem. You've done it before. I see you, Dad. Good luck. Send me a WhatsApp. I remember being in Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan, and thinking, oh my God, okay, I'm here. I'm on my own now. And I'm repeating myself here now, sorry, but
You're
I'm
good.
just laboring the point that you can be anywhere. And what I'm saying to if people are listening, if you've got the wherewithal, go and look at a country that you really know nothing about. I knew nothing about Central Asia, like zilch, duck egg, nothing. And now at 65, Kyrgyzstan, the most wonderful country, the most welcoming country, the most beautiful country, with people living in yurts. I mean, they might think in Texas or down in the south that they're horse country, with the horses and that. Forget it. Kyrgyzstan is horse country.
Wow.
And the people are just so helpful. So the point I'm making is, if you want to travel, go get a ticket and don't try and plan it. Just go and rent a bike, go on a horse, just go walking, go walkabout like the Aborigines in Australia. We've been traveling for all of humanity. All of humanity, we've been on the road. Everybody travels. And as I say in Quondam, I forget it now, I don't know which page it's on. When I'm looking up at the galaxies, when I'm looking at Andromeda, I do believe that there are countless teeming life in the universe.
Me too.
And there's a one line in Quondam: if there's life, there must be travel.
Oh, how empowering and invigorating.
Yeah. So that even if there's life on planets far, far, far billions of light years away, they're traveling.
Yeah.
Because if they've got consciousness, if they've got with consciousness comes curiosity, and it makes us look around the corner. So if there's a conscious, and I do believe there's all kinds of levels of civilizations across our beyond imaginable cosmos, there's travel.
Mm.
Everybody's traveling.
Mm.
But the question you need to ask yourself is, how do you want to travel, and
Yes.
how do you want to contribute? Because it's not about you. It's not only about you. It's about everybody you meet, because once they meet you, they're on a journey too. I can guarantee you, the young boys that I met at 10 or 11 or 12, do you not think they will be talking about that crazy Irish guy who came to Egypt or Sudan or wherever he was?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember people who when I was a young lad. So the impressions we leave, the trail, like a snail, the slime trail that we leave it behind, and other people pick it up, or they're influenced by it.
Mm.
So we are traveling for not just ourselves, but we're traveling to pollinate. Is a good one.
Oh, oh, that's a good one.
That's a
It's
good one, isn't it? Just
yeah.
can't remember. to pollinate with idea. And that if you look, like anybody studying archaeology, history, the history of humanity, geez, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's how humanity has uh, developed. We're pollinating ideas,
Wow.
culture, business, food, everything.
Yeah. It's this. I read a.
Once, yeah, sorry, go on.
You're good. I read a book that was written by Deepak Chopra, and he talks about the law of reciprocity and how no matter who you meet, when you meet them, always give something, even if it's a smile or a hug, because like you said, leave a trail of love, a trail of whatever.
The time trail.
Which is ironic. I have a snail tattoo
Oh,
for that reason, because
hey.
for that exact reason of leaving a trail of.
Right, okay.
It's cool to think about all the people we've met that have left a lasting impression, even if it were just in a coffee shop, and how travel can lead you to people you would have never met before and lead you to new experiences of self and new ways of seeing.
Yes, that's what it's all about, I think, Kylie. New ways of seeing, which is desperately, desperately needed now in our highly hyper techie insulated blinkered world. We need to, like, just like America, Ireland has a lot of immigrants, a lot of people coming here from all over the world. We have issues as well. We have a right wing that don't want people.
Mm,
And when the research was done, a lot of those people have never traveled. They've never gone anywhere. They're living in their bubbles.
yeah.
And if you're black or Asian or whatever, oh, I don't know about you. Maybe you should go back home, you know? When the research was done, all those people who are living in their bubbles, they've never gone to anywhere. So, I'm a firm believer in trying to get people to travel with consciousness.
Their greatest teacher, stuff that you can't learn in a classroom or
No.
a course. It's something you have to experience to be able to evolve in a way.
Yes.
I love that. Okay. One of the last questions doesn't necessarily pertain to quantum, but it's something I want to start
Okay.
asking guests I have on the podcast. Is
Right.
it's deep.
Is it a difficult one?
No.
Can
It's
I
because the questions are so broad that we could spend hours talking about each one. So answer
can
however.
I phone these quizzes? I don't, do you have them in the States? I'm sure you do. Where they ask you a question, yeah, but you can phone a friend.
Yes. Yes.
You have those ones too? Yeah,
Yes, that's
well,
what I'm talking about.
right. Can I phone a friend?
This one's a personal one, so you could phone a friend,
Can I
but
phone, can I phone my wife?
honestly, I know Sarah would be able to give such a beautiful, both of the brains together in this one would be
Right,
so
right.
how would you define happiness?
Can I phone a friend? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Happiness is a fuzzy one, isn't it?
So
It's a bit fuzzy. It's a bit fuzzy. Fuzzy happiness is fuzzy in the sense of uh, it's short term and long term.
ever changing.
It's yeah, the short term happiness. You get a letter in the post and it tells you something nice. Um, your girlfriend, your boyfriend wants to get back with you, or they've whatever. Yeah, you've just won the lotto. Yeah, there's a little hit of, oh wow, you feel. Um, or you just feel good. You just see a swallow, the first swallow of, like in Ireland, we have swallows coming in from Africa. I get happy when I see the first swallow, knowing that it has flown from Cape Town, South Africa, where I cycled to. I get a big hit from that.
Oh,
And the swallows will come, they will arrive. Sadly, with climate change, those swallows are decreasing in number every year since we've arrived here. But when I see them, I get a huge well in the heart of, no, I think it's joy. I think it's joy. I think there's a different. Now, sorry, I'm not a psychologist or a social psychologist. But I think that I guess there's a different sense, a different feeling between joy and happiness. For me, I think happiness is either it's short lived,
Yeah.
or there's a sort of a underlying happiness that's running through my life.
Mm.
Yeah, that's just there. It's an undercurrent.
Yeah.
Even if the day is shitty and everything goes wrong, the car does breaks, and the coffee grinder goes kaput, or the thing, there's an underlying happiness that's there. You believe in life, you believe in yourself, and you have let's park joy for a second, but you've asked about happiness. It's a state of mind. Yeah,
I
I
agree.
don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but
Me neither, but I think
from my experience, I think happiness is, again, look at the mirror and just what it's my state of mind. If you're always in a negative, downward spiraling state of mind, I don't think you're going to be happy. But if you begin your day, throughout your day, you it's difficult. It's difficult for all of us on this fucking planet, whether you're in Tokyo or Oregon or Cork or West Cork or wherever. It's tough, right? Because we're being bombarded and blasted by so much negativity and war and technological stuff that we were not designed to handle.
right.
So we have a huge tsunami
Mm.
of negativity coming at us every day.
Yeah.
So never before have we needed to resource ourselves with whatever we can get to build up a core resistance uh, of I won't call it happiness, because I think happiness is an outcome, it's a result,
Yeah.
it's the result of something. But I think we need to put in foundations
Kind of.
every day, foundations for our building. Otherwise we're building our 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 mental, physical homes on sand. If we're dependent on Elon Musk's, or what the social media people are saying, or who are following on Twitter, or sorry, X, we're on sand. Like, if we're depending on what everybody else is saying, we're on sand. We're going to sink. So we got to find whoever I love this guy, Guru. A friend of mine told me about him. He's from India. He's funny. There's loads of guys. There's a guy based down in, another guy based down in, what's his name? I just love tapping into these guys because they're funny, but they're deeply wise.
Mm.
Saiguru is a funny guy, and he's, anything at all that can keep us, that can build our foundation. I think it's important. And out of that, look, if happiness comes, great. I mean, coming back to travel brought me enormous happiness. If you were to ask me, Kylie, what were the happiest moments in my life? And if I really start, I would have to say, I know Sarah isn't in the room now and my kids aren't here, but between us two, I'd say some of the peak happy moments were on that journey that I made.
Mm. Something that
Some of the peak moments, some of the most extreme, beyond the John Devoy feeling, beyond, they were outside me.
yeah.
Um, you read Quondam, yeah?
Yeah.
And Quondam ends, if you remember how it ends, don't tell
I
people,
won't.
if people are listening, they don't want to know, right?
Right.
It ends on a cliffhanger. My editor said, wow, for your first book, you really ended on a cliffhanger. You know, people will want more. It ends on a cliffhanger. It ends with me about to go to Madagascar because we won't say of certain events that happen. But the second book, which I'm working on, and this is relevant to happiness, or at least something close to it. The second book, I hope to bring the reader to a point where I'm in Namibia, which is just north of South Africa, on the Atlantic coast, South Atlantic coast. And I was leaving Windhoek, which is the capital of Namibia.
Mm-hmm.
About 2 days down, and I had 1,000 miles. There is exactly 1,000 miles from Windhoek to Cape Town.
Wow.
Yeah, 1,000
Yeah.
miles.
Yeah.
Imagine going from Oregon, go 1,000 miles south, and you'll get a sense, right? So I don't know, San Diego? No,
About there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, I'll tell you this story because it's sort of interesting.
I'm intrigued already.
A guy, I'm 3 days out, and the roads in Namibia are dead straight. And a police car pulled in front of me, and a guy gets out, an officer, and I remember he puts his hat on, and he comes back and he looks for my passport, and I show it to him, and he says, "Oh, Irlanda, yeah."
Yeah.
And he welcomes me to Namibia, and he says, "When you get to my town, you must call and come for a coffee." So he gives me his address. In those days, there was no phones.
Yeah.
You took out your pen and your notebook, and you physically wrote an address.
Yeah.
And said, when you get to this, so 2 days later, I arrive at this crossroads, and it's not a town, it's more like a little sprawling little village or something. And I'm thinking, will I go? And I'm tired, and it's 4 o'clock, and I say, okay, I probably could do with a coffee. So I find his house, and I go in, and his wife is there, and she's been drinking.
Mm.
And then he says, you're welcome, and come in and sit in the sitting room. And it's a very simple, humble bungalow.
Mm.
And he goes off to rescue 2 girls who are being abused, right? Alcoholism is a big issue with some of the people there. And
Uh-huh.
these 2 young girls of 11, 12, they're sort of that age, 10 maybe, 11, 13, not more. He brings them back, and he gives them to a young girl who's sort of their girl who lives, not their daughter, but sort of cleans the house and does stuff. And these two young girls are given to her, and she takes them away. And he comes in to me and he says, "I'm going to cook food, and you stay in the little sitting room there for a while." So I'm sitting on the floor, I'm sort of, and then his wife comes in, and she starts asking me, "What am I doing there?" And that her husband is always bringing people home, and I shouldn't be there. And why don't I go away? And then she disappears, and he comes in with plates of food, and we're eating it. And then she comes back, and she's even more drunk. And then she starts shouting at me, get out of my house. What are you doing in my house? So, and then he tells me, you are welcome, right? My wife has a problem. Obviously, she's an alcoholic,
Yeah.
right? But he's telling me he's the calmest guy. Now, this is what happened. In that moment, when she's shouting abuse at me and he's telling me to be as calm and you're welcome and don't worry about my wife, she's ill, my mind goes, I'm not there anymore. I hear him, I hear her, I know I'm physically present, but I'm not there anymore. I see and hear everything with a purity that I have never before or since experienced.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I see in him everybody that I had seen throughout the whole journey.
Oh.
It was, now, I didn't know then, but that was a Satori experience.
Uh-huh. Oh.
Satori in Zen is, and I'm not huge. I practice a little bit of meditation, but I'm not at all a Zen. People, if they're listening and they're Zen practitioners, please forgive my. But Satori is an experience, a moment of no mind.
Yeah.
You are
Wow.
present, but you're more present than your ego and your normal mind can allow. And in that moment, because of its craziness, I was pushed over the edge. I left that house. I wrote a note on their coffee table. The last thing I saw was that man, that officer, holding or limping, trying to bring his wife down a corridor. I just saw her going down a corridor and he putting her into her room. And I slept on the floor. I wrote a note thanking, and I left at, God knows, 5:30 in the morning. I was gone.
What? What?
I rode all morning, and I can honestly say I was in a different place. For days after, I was in a different place. And a few years later, I was telling somebody who I practiced karate, and I was telling somebody who was much older than me who practiced Aikido, was working with a Hogen. He's long dead now, but he was a Japanese Zen master, and he used to visit Ireland. And she said, "Oh, you should really go to the Zen retreat." And I went to a Zen retreat for 1 week. And during that Zen retreat, each student of 100 would have a one-on-one. I think there's the Zen people listening would know the word, but
Yeah.
it's when you sit with the master and you can ask or say or
Yeah.
whatever. There's a word for it. I forgot. I remember it was under a big stairs in a big building, and there was a tiny, tiny, tiny space, a little door, and he was sitting there, and I was telling him this, and he just laughed. He said, "Oh, You know, you had your Satori, you had your little opening, your little window. He said, you're just falling like a leaf.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so don't worry about it. Get over it, you know. But the point is not the Satori, not the experience. The point is that sometimes travel, if you're lucky enough, it can bring you to extreme moments, extreme, rare positions. And that could never have happened in the first 6 months of my journey. It could never have happened in the first year of my journey. That was like I was on the road for 20 months at that point, through an awful lot. So I think, like the Japanese, the Zen master said, it happened because I was already on the edge.
It just gave you that
I was
little.
on the edge. All I needed was some crazy situation to push me over the edge. And an alcoholic woman and a very caring, compassionate police officer was my edge moment. I'm saying this because there are mysteries to putting yourself in strange situations. If you don't put yourself in strange situations
No.
like that, you're not gonna find bits of yourself that you don't know about. You
Thank
know?
you. Thank you for sharing. So we have 4 minutes left on this Zoom. I appreciate you so, so much for just sitting down and taking the time to share such intimate moments of life and your wisdom and answer my deep questions that I mean, I just know we could go for hours.
Yeah,
I
sure.
appreciate you and with the 3 minutes and 45 seconds we have left.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would like to let the listeners know?
Let the listeners know. Gee, Kylie, yeah, we'll have to come back, won't we?
Right? We'll have to do a part two.
Part two. um, the obvious thing is, and it has happened here in Ireland, um, it, like I have been interviewed
Mhm.
by two different people here, and what we did or what they suggested, it wasn't me, but what they suggested was whoever tuned into their channels, their podcasts, um, they got the book, they got Quondam, and on one of them was from Dublin. We went back again, and I think there were 6 or 7 of their group who got the book and read it. And that was really, really wonderful because we had a Zoom call and there were 6 or 7 people who
Oh,
then had read Quondam like
yeah,
you have.
yeah.
And we had a whale of a time because then they really knew they had said, and all of them had totally different takes on it and different viewpoints and different questions. And so you're asking me what to say. I'd say whoever's going to listen to this, well, here now we're going to get into tricky waters. Firstly, whoever has listened to this, maybe get Quondam. I don't know how you can put that up on your
I will
thing.
put it in the show
Right?
notes. I'll put the link
Yeah,
directly to your website.
and read it between the lines. Read it. How would I say, psychologically? Yeah, it's more than just a physical adventure. It's taking you into yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
So read it, and then maybe when if you have, I don't care, 1, 2, 3, 4, 100, it doesn't matter.
Get
It,
together
it
and discuss.
get together, and then we do a further exploration. The only thing I say is tricky because the only thing I'll say is that Obviously, in the States, you can't walk into your local bookshop. You
Right.
can in Ireland, you can in the UK, and the bookshop will give it to you over the counter. They'll give you the quality copy. If you buy it from Amazon, you're going to get Jeff Bezos. He wants to send people to Mars or whatever he's doing with his money. You'll get a cheap paperback copy from Amazon, and there's nothing I can do about that. That's no problem. If you want to get a cheap paperback copy to read it, that's okay. Get it from Amazon.com in the States. If you want a quality book with a beautiful cover, spine, quality paper, then you'll have to go to my website.
I will put that in the notes so everyone.
JohnDevoyAuthor.com. And look, I don't care where you get it, but I'm just saying it would be unfair of me not to say that, because it galls me that people, even here in Ireland, are buying it from Amazon, and yet
Okay. Zoom cut us off. So rude. And so we couldn't give a proper goodbye outro. But what John was saying is if you order the book from Amazon, you're not going to get a high quality print. It's still the same book. You're still going to get the information within, but let's support him and Quondam by ordering it directly from johndevoy.com. I will put that in the show notes. And John so lovingly has said to our listeners and whoever interested that if you order from his website, he will sign a copy personally for you. And it will still be delivered directly to your doorstep as if you ordered it from Amazon. So I highly recommend Quondam overall, but also getting it directly from John's website. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, this is a little sneak peek. This is my copy of Quondam. It's funny because you can tell it's been well read by the way the pages are, but it's a nice copy. Whereas Amazon, you may not get as good of a quality. And then I got a personal signature, not to brag, a personal signing and message within my book, and you can too. So I highly recommend checking out johndevoy.com. And it's also on Audible. John reads it on Audible. So if you're looking for a whole other experience, even so, I'm personally listening to it at the moment. So it's like reading it a second time, but you hear so many different points of view. So I highly recommend that. And yeah, I look forward to having more guests on this podcast and just sharing that with the world. I feel so inspired after that interview with John. And I hope you do too. Sending you so much love, and I will talk to you next time. Bye, baby. Hopping in here to realize I didn't spell out the John Devoy website, and it's also johndevoyauthor.com. So it is JOHNDEVOY author.com. I hope to see you soon, and if you read Quondam, John and I were talking about how we could do another Zoom group and we all just discuss the book, kind of like a little book club. So let me know your thoughts and make sure to give John a review, whether it be on Amazon, Audible, or wherever you consume this book. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time.